bringing friends into the relationship. And what I mean by this is I have seen this across so many relationships. I've seen this played out in my own in some ways. But the friend giving advice on the relationship that honestly isn't warranted and or needed. You know, bringing a friend in, you know, for example, girl goes out on a date and then she comes home and tells her friend all about it. And then her friend basically tells her, this is the most awful human being in the world. You deserve better. But in reality, like, the guy's a genuine good guy who really likes her. But because of the way her friend talks about this guy, she's going to just break it off and never talk to him again. So that's the topic we're talking about.
I'm going to let you take this one.
Will you? I have very strong opinions on this topic, in fact. My opinions are so strong, I wrote a book. And in this book, it is discussed. So I view what happens on a date or in dating is, I call it IP, intellectual property. And don't get me wrong, when you have your BFF, you know, and if your BFF, like, you have one, not five, right? It's not a group thing. It's sure as hell not a group chat. You know, or maybe your BFF is one of your parents, or maybe your BFF is your therapist or whatever. I get that. I think everyone's allowed one. But what happens between two people is their property. It's intellectual property. And when you share that intellectual property, right? It's so funny because everything we're talking about tonight is like very transactional. We're talking about contracts. We're talking about very specific times and an event, which is really weird because you and I, like, this is not our brain. You and I are very artsy and, you know, very left. And now, don't get me wrong.
I'm very against transactional. Like, yeah, that's just not my jam. I'm very spontaneous, fun-loving. So the transaction, actually, I resist it, but it's necessary.
And anyway, yet here are these topics tonight. It's so weird. So I know this isn't a requested or rejected, but not only am I a rejected, I am violently rejected to outside opinions about matters of the heart between two people in a dating relationship. Now, let me back up, right? So now we're back to where, right, the dog's chasing the tail here. When we're talking about the funnel, and if you're my dear friend, like, truly, maybe I'm not your best friend, but you're truly a dear friend, and or maybe even a coworker, right? We work together, and I know you've gone out with, what did you say earlier?
Jimmy
Johnny, Jimmy John, freaky fast. That's a whole other topic. So,
well, I mean, if he is freaky fast, I mean, I don't know if he's the...
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe that's what we need to talk about. Okay, we digress. So, and I come to you and I could be like, hey, look, I know I'm not your best friend, but I know that around the water cooler, around the funnel, the rotation that you've gone out with Jimmy, or you've gone out with, you know, a few times, and I just want you to know my experience has been, you know. Now, here's the thing, if it's gossipy and catty, like, seriously, dude, I'm at a point in my life where I will just look at that person and I will say, you know what, thanks, and I don't give a shit. Like I have said that to people. Like I actually have said to people, you know how people say that sometimes you let people off the elevator? Ding, I'm letting you off. I have actually said that to people. I'm just that guy. Like I love you, but you did me wrong, so now you're off.
Yeah.
I want to invite you to find a different opportunity. So, sorry, I know you want me to move on here. So, it's not welcome. It's not necessary. I am a mature 45-year-old man who's not perfect, but I have a brain on my head, or a brain in my head, and I can make my own choices. And now, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I want you to know that here, Jimmy John has 3 cases of whatever on CaseNet. Just want you to know." Well, then maybe that's different.
Yeah. That, yes.
Weigh in on all
if
that,
they're,
Mo.
if they're trying to, and they just stumbled upon some information that you might want to know, then absolutely. But I have people in my life in particular who want to know my business, and I resist letting them know my business because I am a private person. And if I want to share my business with you, I will. And if I want your input, I will ask you for it. I don't need your unsolicited advice. So as far as friends' input on my relationship or family's input on my relationship, I avoid it at all costs because they're not me and they don't know the daily experience that I go through with an individual. They don't know the conversations that we've had. And they might just, and you have to be careful even venting, to your friends and loved ones, because they're always going to have your back if they're a good friend or loved one. So you might just be having a bad day and like, this piece of crap, blah, 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 and he did this and he was late and I was late, and then I was like, you son of a bitch, F you.
Right.
And you just needed to vent to that one friend, but then he or she takes that as, F that guy and you should dump him, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a recipe for confusion. And you should really keep your emotions to yourself. And if as a friend, if somebody is expressing to you their relationship failures or whatever, you should be a wise enough friend to not try to give them advice and just give them support. So if anybody's trying to tell me who I should and should not date, I just tune out. I'm not listening anymore. I'm done. Rejected. You can tell me how you feel, but I'm not listening.
So I think for me,
it gets worse as you get older.
I think the
I
crux
can imagine.
Of this topic comes down to which relationship are you really in? Because a lot of times there's a best friend who is your real relationship. Let's be honest. There's women and men who have their best friend, and although it's not a real dating relationship, in reality you're each other's best person and stuff. So those are where the real issues lie, is that when that you have that best friend who then becomes an ear in the basically you're adding a secondary almost dating relationship on top of it. And that's where the confusion becomes, because are you really invested in your friend, or are you really invested in this new potential life
Why
partner?
can't you be both?
You should be able to be both.
You can be a parent, you can be a business owner, you can be a Christian, you can be so many things, and you can do them all. Why can't you be a best friend and a partner? Regardless of the sexes, it doesn't matter, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I mean, that's we're talking ideal
Yeah.
world there, but
Especially
I just know
if
that
you-
there's people that are frankly just bad for like there someone you have a friend who's actually bad for your relationships in your dating life because of the negative and bad advice that they give you.
Negative
That's-
people.
Yeah.
You know, they're really a drain, even though you think they're your best friend. You know, you tell them everything, it's great. You know, if that's the relationship that you want, then fine. But they're probably creating a negative funnel, or they're creating a negative draw from you being potentially someone that it can stick around in a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
I can't be around it. It's poisonous to me.
yeah.
I won't be. I can't be around it.
There's a song. I forget who it's by, but it's called Better Not. And it was introduced to me by my Spotify. And it sounds to me like this is what I would want my best friend to be to me. And she's singing this song and she's saying, girl, you're in love. I gotta tell you right now, you're in love. He's better than anybody you've ever found before. She's not giving her the bad advice. She's giving her the good advice. And so your best friend, a lack of good advice can be considered advice. You don't even have to say, oh, don't date that guy, don't date that girl, don't go down that road, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to be that person. Your lack of good advice can be taken that way.
Yeah.
Does that make
Valid.
sense?
Very valid.
But if you're like, oh, girl, you gotta go on another date, you gotta freaking get this guy, he's the one, then you should trust her enough to listen, or him enough, or whoever. That's what friendship is, and that's where the balance is between a best friendship and your relationship with your spouse or your future spouse or whatever. You can have both, and each has a role to play.
yeah.
But if I don't approve of my friend's partner, I'm gonna, she'll be like, oh, he was so funny because he said this thing, and I'll be like, okay, honey, sure. But if she's, if I see the light in her eyes, I'm her best friend enough to know, like, that's it. Like, go on another date, like, this is your guy. Move forward. And I would hope that would be taken well.
Agreed.
Okay, well, I think that's a great place to leave our conversation today. So take us home.
All right. So I do have one last question for you.
Okay.
How would, because I actually get asked this, and so you ever notice how when somebody asks you a question, they ask you a question because they want to be asked that question?
Yeah.
It's this weird human dynamic.
Social psychology.
Yes.
I'll tell you what.
Absolutely. So my question to you is, because you're on the younger end, right, of our viewing audience, and when a man asks you out, organic, I'm not talking, let's leave the dating app crap out of that. I don't even know if you do that, but let's say like a guy genuinely walks up to you, right, at the gym, at church, on the sidewalk, anywhere but the bathroom.
Anywhere but the bathroom.
Yeah. And what is the best way to approach you?
Off the top of my head.
Is that too much pressure?
No, I'm going to give you the off the top of my head answer. The thing that would make me say yes, no matter what you look like, smell like, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Okay, maybe if you smell bad, maybe no, but
Okay.
You come up to me and you say, there's this place I want to take you to, and you already have your plan. because you've been looking at me that long, I'm yours.
Noted. Interesting.
Like, hey, baby, do you like Italian? Because I want to take you.
Wait a minute.
to
If a
this
guy said to
place.
you, hey, like you just met, like you don't even remember what his name was because he just told it to you 5 seconds ago. And he said to you, hey, baby.
Well, if he said, hey, baby, maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe that's subliminal. That's just a pickup line. But if
Yeah.
if a man came up to me and, just, you have to have swag. I don't have male swag. I don't know. But you would have, like, come on.
You
You're
know it when
looking
you
at
feel
me
it.
from across the room. You know where you want to take me on our first date. You already know. Come
he
up
should
to
know.
me and ask me to go there with you. Like, find the swag way to say it and just say it. Don't come up to me like, hey, would you like to go on a date sometime?
Yeah.
Have a plan, be ready. And if you don't have a plan when you ask me, have a plan immediately after. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't want to have to do the dirty work, because if I ask you out,
The dirty work.
I know where I want to take you.
Yeah.
I have an idea of when. And I'm not going to ask you until I have at least those 2 ducks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
A place and a time.
And it doesn't matter what he looks like.
No. Nope.
Interesting.
I don't know. Some women might be different. I won't speak for all of them, but for me, if you have game, swag, energy, that's what's attractive to me. And because most people are attractive, but in some way, shape, or form, you can find something attractive about them. But for women, the physical attraction comes after the emotional. For men, it's the opposite. That's just science. There's nothing wrong either way you look at it. Men look for the face and the body and the hair. Women are looking
I don't disagree with you.
for the ability to lead a situation, the energy, the charm, the confidence, all that stuff.
Great answer. Thank you.
So, the end.
This, I don't,
Maybe, what?
this was really, really good. This is probably the one episode that I did not look at the camera the most, because I was just so into the conversation.